Welcome back to Jim Snedeker Music. Today we're going to look at how to change strings on an acoustic guitar. This is a Martin guitar that we're going to use, and I need to change strings. So I thought, why not bring you into what I'm doing? A prerequisite for our task today is a string winder, very important tool. One that will greatly ease your amount of effort that you need to use to change strings. So let's get started. All right, with using our string winder, the first thing we're going to do is detune the strings. And this actually has two different functions for that based on the size of the tuner, the tuning key. So I'm going to use the wider one for this one. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to mount it on here and I'm just going to turn it to lower it. Okay? How do you know it's going lower? See how low that is already? It didn't take much, did it? Okay, so I'm going to do that with all these strings. I'm just going to get them to a point where they are no longer at pitch. And if you notice, I don't know how well you can see that, but as I turn this way, it's loosening the string and lowering the pitch. And we do it, see, the opposite direction on this side. Strings are lowering in pitch. We mount it on there. Yep. So what this means as we go to our next step, because we've lowered our strings and loosened them, loosened the tension, it'll be much easier to do our next step. Our next step is to take our string winder. There's a little notch down here, and it's going to slide under each pin and help us pry it out. So for instance, I kind of got a head start on this first pin. It's going to come out. I'm going to lay it right there. You'll notice in the pin, you can see there's a little slot, a little ditch, so to speak, in this pin, and that's important when we put the strings back on to line the head of the string in the hole up with that slot so it's all straight. More about that later. Let's go ahead and continue to loosen these. It doesn't take much, just a little prying under the, because again, we've already loosened the strings. Now if we hadn't loosened the strings, this might even be dangerous, let alone not a good way to do it. But you see, all I'm doing is I'm just a little bit of leverage. You don't have to force anything. You don't want to force anything. If you have the right tool, of course, you don't need to. That's why I really, I've done this without a string winder, but it's much easier and much more efficient with a string winder. The other thing that's nice is to make sure you get one that has a little cutter for the string length. After you get the strings on, you trim the strings. It's nice to have that built into the tool. So that was step 3. As you notice, all our pins are removed. The next thing is we'll take the strings out. Our next step is, you'll notice the strings have been removed. So at this point, it's a good idea to go ahead and do your cleaning or your polishing. This is the best time to do that without the strings in the way. I'm going to do something. I have actually a battery inside here. I don't know how well you can see that, but it has worn out. So I'm going to change that battery as well while I have the strings off. So this is a good idea when the strings are off, just to do any cleaning or polishing. Okay, so I have replaced the battery that makes the pickup work. So the next thing I want to talk about involves the tuning heads. And I want to get those here in the camera. We'll just turn this around. I think that'll help. Now what I want to say about these is take this tuner down here. What I want to do is line up the hole that's in this tuner peg. I want to line that up with the string so that it will go straight through. So I'm just going to turn that. You can use your winder with this, but I'm going to go ahead since I've got it here if I can see it. Yep, okay, that one is straight. I'm going to do that for all of these, and what that's going to help us with is when we put on that string, it's going to just slide straight through there. And when you're first mounting the strings, that's a really nice thing. We get to tighten them later, but when you're first installing them, if you have the slots, the holes in each of your tuners lined up straight so the string can go through, that'll really again reduce the effort and make this a little less less work for you. All right, next we're going to take our strings and go ahead and open them. Well, okay, like I said, we're going to open those strings. So here we go. Strings are open. And I'm going to take them out like so, get rid of that. So here they are. Here are our strings. These are actually light gauge. Go ahead and show you these. Got the Martin Retros. As I'm doing this, these are actually, okay, so these are the thinner ones. All the way down. We're going to start with our thickest string, our E string. So here we go. Just going to take it out of the package. I'm going to find this little ball right here at the end. You can see that. And all I'm going to do is put that through the pinhole. I'm going to take my tuning peg. Remember how I mentioned lining up that groove, that slot, with the direction of the string, because you want that to go the same direction. So all I'm doing is I'm threading it through here. Now I've already lined up my pegs so that getting it through here, I don't have to turn it. I want to be careful not to turn it. If you kink the string, it may never be the same. It may break on you if you do get everything set up the way you want it, but it's just not the best for the string. So if at all possible, that's why I make these straight and point them right down here toward the tuning peg, because that helps me protect it from getting any sort of kinks that would lead to a premature breaking of the string. Okay, what I'm doing here with my tuning, you don't have to use your winder for this, but I do. And then I just pop it over. Well, I'll tell you what. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. So this, I'm just getting it started. This is certainly not how we're going to end up. But if you notice, here's our peg. It's in there nice and tight. We've got a little bit of tension in our string. Not a whole lot, just enough to get started. And then I'm going to go ahead and continue this for all 5 strings. So that was the 6th string. This is going to be our 5th string. And I'm going to do basically the same thing. There's my ball at the end of the string. I'm going to mount it in the sound hole. The tuning peg hole. I'm going to take my tuning peg, line up that slot just like so. I want it to be nice and straight so it doesn't pop out later. I go up here. I'm all lined up for this particular tuning peg. I slide the string through there. Nothing to it. I do some turning just to get a little bit of tightness, not a whole lot. This is certainly not anything close to tuning the guitar. It's just to get the strings on. They will do their own stretching and adjusting for sure. Sometimes you have to hold that down and you have to watch here, pull that through. Okay, and again, that was just there was a little bit of an overlap there with the strings, and I wanted to avoid that if I could, at least now when I'm just getting these set up. Okay, so this is the next step in our work here. Actually, if you're following along, that's step 7. We're putting the strings on. We've got, just to review, we've got the ball of the string in the hole, the tuning peg lined up, the string straight through the slot up here. And I'm going to go ahead and continue to put these strings on, and then I'll be back momentarily. So we've actually done steps 7, 8, and 9. Step 7 was to start at the tuning peg and align our string. Step 8 was to use our string winder to get some tension on the string. And then step 9 is the one we're on now, where we'll go ahead and install the rest of the strings. All right, so as you can see, I've got a few more strings on now. I'm getting to the really skinny strings, but we're basically using the same procedure. If you can see my string winder, I'm winding, it's tightening, and we just go round and around and around and around and around, and don't be in a hurry. Remember, the strings are going to do their own stretching. So that was our B string. I've got one more string. Of course, then what we need to do is tune the guitar. That'll be our last step. Let me just show you with these thinner strings. Sometimes you have to see how that one, you kind of have to make sure when you get it in there, yeah, you want it to hook. You want to have a little hook in there, and then make sure you line up your tuning peg, and then as you wind, you'll just want to be careful that the strings are not kind of getting twisted around the other strings. And sometimes with these thinner strings that can happen. It's perfectly normal. So the way I've always solved that is just to slow down. Yeah, if you're going to change your strings, best to do it when you have a little bit of time. You know, strings stretch out. Sometimes I walk away and just let them sit for a little bit. I know that's not always possible if you're, say, at a performance and a string breaks, or you need to, you know, if you're crunched for time. But if at all possible, try to make your guitar changing or string changing something that you don't have to do in a hurry. Okay, so our next step will be to tune the guitar. Okay, the guitar is roughly in tune. Strings are still stretching, so I'm just adjusting manually up to pitch. And every one of them seems to be a little flat, so I just give it a little bit. So as you can see, we just go each one. I basically tuned it, and now as the strings stretch, I just give them a chance to do that. That's perfectly normal. And I keep tweaking with my tuner to get them where they need to be on pitch. See, here's this one slipped quite a bit already. Okay, so basically what we've talked about today is how to string an acoustic guitar, how to change strings. See, that top B is still slipping there, you hear it? He gets up there and he backs off. But anyway, that's the idea. One more thing I did want to mention, I showed you in my tuner, in my string winder, I had this little slot to cut the strings. It is recommended to trim your strings. You don't have to do it right away, but the point is it's better overall string maintenance if you trim the ends off of these. And if you have the right string winder, it's a pretty easy job to do. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. I basically got the guitar up to pitch. I'm not going to go real short on these. I just bring it down to get it kind of out of nuisance range. So there's that one. And I'm just going to go ahead and trim these guys. Again, I'm not super close to the pin, to the tuning peg. I just want to trim the strings. Not only does it look neater, but I have been told it's better for overall string longevity, string health, how long the strings are going to last. Anyway, I'm going to finish that up, and I just want to say thanks for watching. Again, this has been how to change strings on an acoustic guitar, and this is a Martin.